something, and I was like, oh, I will certainly play that at some point.
Good luck getting it to run.
Well, I figure if I'm sure that I could figure it out.
Probably. It's just that a lot of older software has trouble running on modern systems.
I feel like my modern software has trouble running on my. I had a PC meltdown today. Like my mouse just stopped working for no reason.
Did you try unplugging it and plugging it back in?
I tried everything. Also, if you're joining us, this is our pre-show to the live show. But I mean, fuck it, let's go. Let's do it. Let's get this over with.
All right, let's go flying through space.
My fly through space button isn't doing anything.
Oh no!
You know what? Fuck it, I'll do it manually. There we go.
Pull the lever back. Woo!
Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I am Daniel.
I am Chris.
And this isn't usually how we appear. But
no.
You had shit to do today, I think. So
yeah.
It's too bad because ordinarily when you come over, I make spaghetti. And I forgot while I was making spaghetti tonight, I forgot that you weren't actually coming over, so I made enough spaghetti for everybody.
Leftovers.
Yeah. So this is our it's our Star Wars show, but also sometimes, depending on the mood, also our MCU/Batman/The Boys/ I don't know what else are we kind of into, different video games.
Whatever we damn well please. Yeah, it's our show.
That's true. So welcome. And while you're here, feel free to like the stream, share it in different places where it's appropriate or inappropriate, depending on how you personally are feeling. I mean, I'm not your mother. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but it would help us a whole bunch. And we got some cool stuff today. We got some Star Wars news. We're gonna talk about Moon Knight. We're gonna spoil Moon Knight, but you will be well warned beforehand.
There's a lot to spoil about Moon Knight because holy crap.
Yeah, that was a pretty actually we'll talk about when we get there. But this episode was kind of neat in a few distinct ways. And then we are doing after this. Chris won't be here, unfortunately. He's an hour away, but we'll be doing our Battlefront stream at 7 with our buddies from Gremlin Squad. Also, we'll be reading the chat as we go through, if I can remember. In fact, you know what? I'm going to move my OBS over somewhere else, so that way, if a chat pops up, it'll be right there, right in my face.
That's clever of you.
Yeah, and except, yeah, this will work out. It's a good thing that so if we would set this up like we normally do, my button wouldn't have worked. So I would have had to stand up and walk over to my computer and press the button and go back to where we sit. Anyway, let's talk about
production value.
Yeah, we're doing great. So let's see. Let's talk about some. Star Wars Andor apparently was going to bite off more than it could chew, I guess, from what I'm reading.
Okay.
And so they spit some of it out. They took a big bite and they're like, you know what? We're not going to do 4 seasons or 3 seasons. Which I think is what they 5. They had planned on 5 seasons, and you might remember a few weeks ago we talked about how they had already renewed it for a 2nd season, which is great, by the way. That says a really good thing about the show. It shows really good things about the market testing for it.
Sure.
Because if they're greenlighting a 2nd season for Andor, it means that they feel like it's really, really good. I guess they're going to do 5 seasons, and they're like, no, we might actually only do 2 or 3. So, which is fine, because, you don't have to fucking, like, how do you tell 5 seasons worth of story about Cassian Andor in between, like, his birth and Rogue One, you know?
Yeah, like, we know how that story ends.
Yeah, and like just watching 5 seasons of it, you're constantly reminded, oh, this dude's gonna fucking die. Like, why am I investing so much time?
Diego Luna is great. I loved watching his character in Rogue One. I'm not convinced I needed 5 seasons of that, though.
Yeah, I wasn't even convinced I needed 1 season. But, I mean, now that I'm kind of like, I've seen some production photos, and I don't know. I know I probably shouldn't read into this, but studios generally know when they have shit, and they won't tee it up a whole bunch, and they won't be like, oh, this is the best thing ever. We're doing a 2nd season. Unless they're Game of Thrones. In which case, they're like, oh, you guys are going to love this series finale so much, we're going to do 5 other spin-off series. And then everyone hated it, and they're like, oh, we're just going to do 1, and probably in 5 years. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. At the very least, it'll be
It'll be more Star Wars.
Yeah, it's in the Star Wars universe. Like, what else? What else do I want? And what's next?
Well,
about Kenobi, right?
Something in Star Wars that you might want is some lightsabers.
Yeah, I like my lightsabers.
Yeah, we're officially 1 month out from Kenobi, and
I can't wait.
Yeah, director Deborah Chow talked to Entertainment Weekly about how to the sort of balance they're striking between telling new stories and keeping it within established canon.
Yeah.
There's one quote in here that really jumps out at me. She said, quote, "I wanted to be very respectful to what exists and not change anything that George Lucas intended originally or anything like that," unquote. My response to that is that George Lucas originally intended midichlorians and Jar Jar Binks. So there are certain things about what George Lucas made that I'm okay with taking some liberties with.
Also, George Lucas has 4 billion reasons to not give a fuck about what you're going to do in the Kenobi show because he sold it. Look.
I get the point she's making that like Star Wars fanboys want what they know and are afraid of anything new. So she's like trying to be reassuring to them, but at the same time, tell new stories, take risks.
Yeah, this kind of sounds a little bit like, oh, how do we reassure the fanboy part of the fandom who ironically 10 years ago wanted to sue George Lucas for ruining their childhood for making, or 20 years ago for making the prequels, and now
he's gonna save Star Wars.
Yeah, now he's kind of a deity.
Disregard his $4 billion. He's gonna come out of retirement and work for Disney to save Star Wars.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's kind of I feel like. First of all, I keep forgetting that she's working on this. Which is great because she did a lot of really cool stuff in Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. So like that's going to be a lot of fun. But I don't know if I necessarily care if George Lucas would be in love with and I don't know if Star Wars fans necessarily. I think they care about that, but I don't think they do because people famously forget that George Lucas fucking loved The Last Jedi. Like that's his favorite sequel movie. He hated The Rise of Skywalker, and he hated above all else The Force Awakens.
Really?
And his I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah.
But he's pretty much like, why the fuck is everyone doing retro, quote unquote retro remakes? This is stupid. Do something new. Do something unexpected.
Yeah.
And they did, and then Star Wars, half of the Star Wars fandom freaked the fuck out. But everyone kind of like conveniently forgets that George Lucas was like, he like called Rian Johnson up and was like, "You did good, son. You did a good fucking job."
Well, you have to remember that once upon a time, George Lucas was this like indie filmmaker who completely hated the Hollywood machinery and barely made Star Wars happen at all.
Yeah, he really is. And I don't know how much of a hippie you can be with $4 billion. But you're right. At the beginning of his career, he made stylistic choices in Star Wars just to piss the corporate guys off a little bit. So and that's the entire reason why he wanted to fund everything with his own money and why he wouldn't sell his sequels ahead of time, because he didn't want people to take it away from him. He wanted to control and shit over it. And the point is like fine, calm down the crazy Star Wars guys and whatever. Write a good story that makes sense. If you're gonna retcon something, make it at least sensible. Like where you're like, oh, that actually kind of elevates the story, as opposed to being like, oh, Rey Palpatine, and where like it doesn't make sense and like who the fuck wants this? So
like at least have a reason for the things you're doing.
Yeah. Other than knee jerk, course correcting. That's not a good reason to do storytelling. Star Wars has officially announced that they're doing a Mandalorian and Star Wars Visions manga.
Oh, good.
Square Enix apparently is going to do it, which I didn't realize they did mangas. I thought they did video games.
I didn't either, but
man, Square Enix is getting a lot of fucking Star Wars shit in the pipeline, aren't they?
Yeah. Nintendo actually got their start as like this card company, like physical playing cards, and they moved into video games very late. Yeah.
Well, wasn't it Nintendo?
Yep, Nintendo. That's what I said.
Oh, Square Enix.
Yeah, I'm giving an example of another
Oh, I got you.
Japanese
No, no,
company
no, I
that's
got you.
very
Yeah,
diverse.
no, 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 I get it. I turned my brain off for a second there. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, Star Wars Visions is begging for a manga kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
The Mandalorian could be pretty neat. It doesn't necessarily say. Well, I guess it does. It's based off of the Mandalorian, the series on Disney Plus, and not just Mandalorians.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be pretty neat. I wonder if the Mandalorian thing is going to be a like a, you know how they have the comic book adaptions of Star Wars movies and the novelizations.
Yep.
I wonder if it'll be something like that, where it's just like what we already know, or if they'll like fill in a little bit in between stories and stuff.
Yeah, there's also the possibility that they take more of a visions approach to it, of like, here's Mando, but we're going to change the universe that he's in and some things about him to tell our own story.
Yeah,
Um, I'm also wondering, because Mando is very heavily based on like the Western tradition in the U.S., which is sort of like our cultural, our storytelling device. I
yeah. That
wonder.
we kind of stole, by the way, from Asian. Well,
Sure,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
but
more
but
complex than that, but yeah.
but I'm wondering if this new Mandalorian manga is going to draw more on samurai stories, because that's sort of like the Japanese. I don't want to say equivalent, but it fills the same cultural
I mean,
niche
Kurosawa
as
was. It's. I
Westerns,
mean,
sort of.
it was. They were like Japanese spaghetti westerns. Like
Yeah.
there were a lot of parallels between. In fact, I mean, the Mandalorian is a beat for beat. What is that fucking manga series? Something in the Cub. I can't remember. It's about a guy and a baby
Oh
going
yeah.
around like fucking getting in fights and being a badass and shit. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously going to buy them. By the way, they've done this where they've made like manga adaptions of different things that a lot of people don't know about.
Mhm.
So a really good example is there's a really neat set of stories called The Legends of Luke Skywalker, which are a collection of tales about Luke Skywalker.
Legends, really.
Well, the reason they're legends is because they're told like third or fourth hand.
Hmm.
And so the details just get blown out of like in the like the first story, Luke pulls Star Destroyer out of orbit with the
Yeah,
Force,
sure.
like, and but there's also like there's stuff you can tell what the stuff in the stories are true, like the stuff
Mhm.
you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely Luke. Like he walks a bunch of people out over molten like lava or whatever using
Mhm.
some kind of special thing, and he has them all chanting I am one with the Force and the Force is with me. And it's like that's something Luke would do, like but they have a manga version of that, and it's black and white, but it's
Mhm.
really good. Like it's a lot of fun to read.
Yeah.
So tell me about
So let's
Natalie
see.
Holtz. Yeah,
Yeah, we both like music. We're big music nerds.
that's our
Um,
career. That's what we do.
yeah. So Natalie Holt has officially been announced as the composer for the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah.
We had talked earlier about how John Williams was recording something presumably for Obi-Wan.
Well,
He's
the
doing
title theme, yeah.
Yeah, he's doing the title theme. Natalie Holt is doing the rest of the score.
Mm-hmm.
I mostly know Natalie Holt from her work on Loki, which I
Yeah.
absolutely loved. So
Yeah.
I'm in favor of this.
Yeah, I think that her so if you're into Loki, there is a particularly an effective scene that she scored that elevated the entire presentation, and it's when fucking what's that guy's name? He played General Pride.
Is this the Ride of the Valkyries scene?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And like he does all of Asgard in like an illusion and shit, and she quotes like Ride of the Valkyries, and it's really really cool. The other thing about this is that female composers, film composing is almost exclusively male. And it's kind of like you watching at home probably won't care about this, but like the world of orchestral conducting, like when you see an orchestra conductor, are almost always men, with a couple of really famous exceptions. And film scoring is really kind of the same. And so it's cool that there are really great talented women that are getting work here, but it also reminds me a whole bunch of Shirley Walker, who did all the music for Batman the Animated Series.
Oh,
where
yeah.
like it turns out that like some of the best music you've ever heard very well could be from a female composer, and so it's cool that they're kind of making room for something other than just the status quo.
There's one other quote in this article I want to talk about. She said, quote, "It's been glorious working with my hero, John Williams, and also bringing my own voice to the show," unquote. And that's really
I'm so fucking
important
jealous, dude. Like,
yeah. So first, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be working with John Williams. Fucking course you are. Like, how, like, it just pisses. Okay, so we have a mutual friend. His name's Kyle. He lives in LA. He does he does a little less film scoring now, but he's a working musician. And I remember the first time I ever saw on his Facebook, there's a picture of him and John Williams in a picture together, and I just wanted to punch him in the face. I was like, "You motherfucker!" Like, John Williams is the whole reason I wanted to be a musician when I was a kid. So like, yeah, I'm honored to be working with John Williams. You're fucking lucky. It's what you are.
Yeah. The other side of this is that it sounds like she's like taking inspiration from John Williams, but also trying to do her own thing, which I think is vitally important for Star Wars going into the future.
Yep.
I don't want a succession of people trying to ape John Williams. I want these musicians and composers doing their own things. Like Ludwig Göransson's Mandalorian score.
Perfect example.
It's brilliant, and it is so not John Williams at all.
The music for Book of Boba Fett that wasn't I can't remember who it was. It wasn't him though. Because look, there's only and I'm just kind of like, I'm not trying to name drop because I know the guy, but there's only one person that's put out work in the official Star Wars vein that is indistinguishable a lot from John Williams, and it's Gordy Hobb, right? And he just understands the language enough that he can write in it and make it sound really convincing. That being said, he's the only one I've ever heard like write something that's supposed to be quote unquote John Williamsy and actually sound like fucking John Williams. So you're right. This is just the dude's gonna die one day, right? And that that like nexus of talent is gonna die with him, and everyone's gonna be trying to be fucking John Williams, and nobody is going to be John Williams because I don't know, he's like what a once in every 5 century fucking talent, you know? So
something like that.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So basically, if you're writing music for Star Wars, use your own voice. Don't try to be John Williams.
Yeah. So not much to say about this, but upcoming Disney Plus series, Star Wars Acolyte, is reportedly delayed.
How many times is this now?
Well, I don't know if they've. Well, I guess. Hold on a second. I didn't know that they delayed Acolyte specifically. I guess they said that shooting was going to begin in February, and then they pushed it back to June. But I guess the June date isn't gonna work either. Okay. So it means we won't get it when we thought we were gonna get it. But we don't even know what the fuck it's about, honestly.
Yeah, but at the same time, you remember the event where what's her name, Kathleen Kennedy, came out and announced we're doing these bajillion Star Wars shows, and like that was one of the ones that I was most excited about. And
me too.
We've heard absolutely nothing about it since.
Right, and I don't know. There's always that thought in the back of my mind where like Lucasfilm loves to be like, oh no, we're not doing that anymore. That's canceled, or these directors aren't attached to the project anymore, or we had to fire someone. The film's done. It was ready to go to theaters, but we fired the director and reshot the entire thing. Like, so there's always that part in the back of my mind. On the other side, like, if they're just looking for enough time to make it really awesome, then do it. Let us know. Give us a hint about what it's about, because this is okay. So they're doing Cinemacon, right? In I can't remember where, but there's a big convention going on right now. Okay. And they released some footage for the upcoming Flash movie, which, by the way, Ezra Miller definitely like beat a bunch of people up in Hawaii and apparently stole the Flash. Like no one seems to care about that. But it's like it was delayed, And so they put out a little bit of footage, and people are freaking the fuck out of it about it, because it doesn't look like it's a Flash movie. It looks like it's a Michael Keaton Batman movie, which he's in. Like, Michael Keaton's in it, and he's playing that version of Batman from 1989 and Batman Returns. Like, he's playing the Batman from that universe. And so now I'm frothing at the mouth for it, because that's like my favorite Batman and shit. And apparently, and this is completely off topic, but apparently they haven't released the footage on YouTube. It was only available at this con, and they wouldn't let anyone with phones. Like, they wouldn't let anyone have their phones out. But apparently, the footage features an old and battered Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne with long hair and a beard. And like just like sleuthing around Wayne Manor, just being in a bad mood and shit.
Yeah.
So
the moral of this diversion is just give us a hint.
Yeah, give us a little bit. Yeah,
just a crumb of footage.
Yeah. Like, the second they said Michael Keaton Batman, it's like, I'm gonna see that motherfucking movie. Like, I don't care if I gotta kill somebody to do it. Or I'll just have Ezra Miller kill somebody. Apparently, I don't know. So this next one's pretty exciting for me.
Yeah. So let's talk about video games.
Yeah.
So there is a rumor from some people on Twitter, at least one of whom is a fairly respectable source, that there is a Mandalorian MMO being worked on at Xbox.
Yes. Give it to me. I want it in my butt. Like, just lube it up and shove it right in my ass, please. I'm kidding.
Thank you for that very graphic description.
Kind of kidding. Half not kidding.
According to rumor, this is being worked on by ZeniMax Online, who are the people who are doing Elder Scrolls Online. Yeah. And
Bethesda, right?
They're part of Bethesda. But that's actually about all we know about this.
Yes.
So, on the one hand, if this actually is an MMO, I doubt we're going to hear or see anything about it for 2 or 3 years at least, because MMOs take a really long time to develop,
especially nowadays when everyone expects the map to be, I mean, 1-to-1 recreation of the universe and that large and everything. So I think that has to be riding off the back of Star Wars: The Old Republic's success.
Could be.
And I think that they're like, we need an MMO that's canon that people can play, and we can finally stop doing this game. We can finally shut it down, because it's been going for 100 years. And also, the idea reminds me a little bit of Red Dead, which isn't exactly an MMO.
But it has Red Dead Online, which is similar-ish.
Right? Yeah, which is like it's. I know. It's not an MMO.
You talk about logging in to do your cowboy dailies, right?
Yeah, well, I haven't done that in a while, because they're not bringing any new content to it, and I got kind of bored.
Yeah.
But there for a while, for like 3 hours a day, I'd get on my fucking Xbox, and I'd be a cowboy for 3 hours, and I'd ride my horse around, who is named Severus Snape, by the way. And I would go and pick my fucking ginseng, and I'd go and fucking make Molotov cocktails I could throw at people, and all this other shit. And it was a lot of fun. And if I could, I remember the entire time doing Red Dead Online, I always thought to myself, if they ever did a Star Wars version of this, that's what all of my life is going to be diverted to. Like, I'm going to have to like hook myself up with IV fluids, and that's what I'm going to do with all my time. And also, it kind of reminds me, there's a really similar idea that's coming out in November called Starfield. That who's doing that?
I think this is Bethesda, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, it is Bethesda, because they've had the rights to the story since the 90s, because it was like from a tabletop space game, and they were like, we don't have the technology to make this cool yet, so we're going to hold on to it for 40 years or whatever. Yeah. And that's another thing. When that game comes out, like, I'm just, because the whole idea is that you're like, you live in space, and you can you can do shit in space, and it's like an MMO, and I'm really excited about that too. You
gotta save your poop to fertilize dirt for potatoes.
Yeah. Oh man, I haven't seen The Martian in a long time, by the way. That's what that's what you're referencing.
Yes.
Which, by the way, slightly off topic, but the author that wrote that book, The Martian, wrote a fantastic unrelated book called Hail Mary, Project Hail Mary, and it's fantastic. I cried at the end. I thought it was really great, and then found out that he literally wrote the book to be bought by a film studio. And that by the time I had read it, which is just a few days after it came out, that a film studio had already bought it, and they're already working on an adaptation for it. And I guess who's that guy that was in La La Land? Yeah, I always think he's Ryan Reynolds, but he's not.
I don't know who you're talking about.
But he's going to be the main character, and I'm real fucking excited about it. Anyway. But apparently there is another Star Wars game that's in development that isn't what you were just talking about. It's from Skydance New Media.
I think we talked about this last week. This is Amy Hennig's
Oh,
studio.
no, this is Amy Hennig. How did this make it back on my list?
I don't know.
Maybe I forgot to delete it. Yeah, because I scrolled down and that's her face. Okay, that's fine because we're taking just a couple seconds and run through what we know about Star Wars games. So we know that Star Wars Hunters is imminent. It's like a mobile game. It's gonna be pay to win. I mean, that's what they do. I probably will not play it. But
probably not. No.
Yeah, that's a game that's coming out. There's an Untitled Star Wars FPS that Respawn and EA are going to do.
Which is definitely not Battlefront.
Yeah, it's not,
this is not Battlefront 3.
Yeah, and they even said it's not Battlefront 3, which sucks because I would really like Battlefront 3. But there's an Untitled Star Wars strategy game by Respawn and Bit Reactor and EA. They all kind of like fall under EA. And it's what I read about. Go ahead.
This instantly makes me think of that Star Wars, I think, Age of Empires clone where you could like get the Jedi and walk around and
Galactic Battlegrounds.
Yeah,
which I still play every once in a while. My buddy Gordo and I play it. Like I had to hack my computer to create like a virtual server so we could play together.
Yeah.
But it looks like it, or another like there's a game called Star Wars Empire at War that was a really similar idea, not really quite the same as Battlegrounds, but kind of the same thing. Jedi Fallen Order 2, or the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, is coming from EA as well.
Which we're due to get an official announcement sometime next month, I believe.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to happen at Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah,
which is what the word on the street is. And there's also there are some rumors that they will have some really early assets to look at. So, and that's cool because that's a story driven game.
Yep.
That's a new Star Wars story right there. That game will be a new Star Wars story, which is awesome. The Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake. That's by Esper and Sony, which apparently is going to be a PS5 exclusive for a while, and then they're going to put it over to Xbox. To which I reply, "Fuck off," because first of all, Knights of the Republic was an Xbox exclusive, and how fucking dare you, frankly? Because I'm not buying a PS. Well, I should. John's not going to let me buy a PS5 to play Old Republic. I absolutely would buy one actually to play that, but that shit's not going to fly. There's an Untitled open world Star Wars game by Massive and Ubisoft, which, by the way, just want to get this out of the way, make sure everyone knows Ubisoft is a terrible company and is head by serial abusers and narcissists, and they shouldn't have jobs anymore. That out of the way. They're doing an open world Star Wars game, which nowadays it's like, does it need to be open world? Because all the shit that's like the Division or any of the other like open world games, most of the open world games that have come out recently, like being open world doesn't help them at all. And like the one exception is Elden Ring, which like actually the open world setting of it is actually like it actually elevates the game a whole bunch.
Yeah, so first off, I feel like we've been talking about this Ubisoft game for at least a year.
Yeah,
but also if I'm envisioning like Assassin's Creed, but you're a Jedi or Sith, which makes me kind of excited. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's that on the other hand. if it's a good open world game, I'll be fucking all about it. So right now I'm in the middle of like I just finished doing Batman Arkham Knight on our Sunday, like not Star Wars Sunday series. So I've stopped playing that on stream. However, I realized that I have not yet, even though I bought an Xbox One just so I could play this game, by the way, like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, sure.
Still have not collected all the Riddler trophies in this massive open world, and there are like 280 of them or something. And so I've just been like with my YouTube video with a guide, just like finding different locations and getting Riddler trophies and shit. What I'm saying is, if it's going to be open world, don't do stupid shit like that. Hide little bitty fucking Riddler things everywhere. Star Wars Eclipse by Quantic Dream, which I don't know, may or may not happen.
We'll see it. We'll check back on that in like 3 or 4 years.
I'll believe that when I fucking see it, honestly. Because they've got a Chinese company that bought their the attached studio for that, and there's a bunch of shit just swirling around it, right? Just the company generally and stuff. So
yeah,
it's the one with the Voldemort guy that plays the drum.
Oh yeah.
And then finally, or I don't think finally yet, but Skydance and Amy Hennig, they're
best
doing a Star Wars for
game. Uncharted.
Yes, and so she was attached. We've said this before. She was attached to a Star Wars game, and that ended up not happening. And it kind of parts of it turned into a Jedi Fallen Order, and I guess a lot of the stuff they didn't use, they're just continuing. Like like she's going to be like, oh, I'm going to take all the shit we were working on, and see how much of it we can turn into a game, which is cool. That's the last one. So that's kind of the ones we know about so far, and I'm gonna play every fucking one of them except for Star Wars Hunters, because fuck online or
mobile games.
Mobile games. I'm not paying to play a game. not like that anyway. All right. So, it's time for our Moon Knight recap.
It is time for Moon Knight.
Yeah. So here's the deal. This episode came out this morning, and there are definitely spoilers in it. Now, I don't think a ton of people are watching. I just saw an article today about this. I guess a lot of the MCU original shows on Disney Plus haven't really impacted their subscriptions for Disney Plus. So I don't think people are super into it, but we're into it. So we're going to talk about it. But so if you care about it being spoiled, pause this, come back after you've watched it, and listen to us rant about it. But you've been warned, there are spoilers, and let's go. Let's get this show on the road. Let's do it.
So episode 5, titled Asylum,
Mm-hmm.
This has a kind of confusing opening sequence. So we start with this like flooding cave, and there's this child screaming for his mother.
Mm-hmm.
We cut to a woman who's just looking down on someone, saying, "This is all your fault."
Mm-hmm.
Another cut to Mark and Steven, who are screaming at the hippo, who starts screaming back, because what else are you going to do? Cut to Mark in Dr. Harrow's office, who's also screaming, and his face is like kind of injured. He's a little bloody.
Yeah, his nose is injured.
Yeah. So Dr. Harrow's like, "Hey, Mark, chill the fuck out. Calm down." So, like, right now, your mind is like swinging back and forth between your reality as, a mental patient in this hospital in Chicago, and this fantasy where you're a superhero.
Dr. Harrow's like, your consciousness is like a pendulous ball sack, just swinging back and forth. And right here is crazy, and over here is not crazy. And your balls are just swinging right back and forth, and you don't know what's real and what's not real.
Mark is like, "Fuck you. You tried to shoot me." And Harrow's like, "Okay, look, let's just go over this again." So you have this story about, you're in Egypt, and there's this hippo, and, all this stuff. And does that sound like sense or nonsense? And Mark's like, "Well, when you say it like that, I guess
with
talking
that
hippos
attitude
are kind of nonsense." Harrow's like, "All right, so here's the thing. Your brain is trying to cope with all the traumatic shit that's going on. It's organizing a place to shelter itself from this trauma. But, as long as we're talking about that hippo, tell me some more. I'm very interested about this hippo, and maybe she'll serve to break down the walls between you and Steven. I also want to hear about the little boy you were just mentioning." Mark's like, "Well, Doc, it's been a long day. You're a really great doctor. I gotta go. I'm just gonna grab this pyramid as I go. And like he's physically restrained by the orderlies. He's trying to. It looks like he's trying to stab himself with the
Yeah, it
pyramid.
looks like he
almost.
definitely looks like he's trying to hurt himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of them like sticks a needle in his neck and sedates him. And he's screaming that Harrow is going to release the monster and destroy everything. Which, do you? I'm not sure what he's talking about exactly.
Yeah, that was a little. There's a lot of stuff in this episode where I'm just like, the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah. So now we're back to Mark and Steven screaming at the hippo. The hippo's like, Jesus Christ, are you always this intense? And Steven's like, yes, he actually really is.
Yeah, he's a pain in the ass.
Mark's like, well, excuse me. The last thing I remember is getting shot. The hippo's like, oh, yes, by the way, I'm sorry to say, both of you are dead. You're very, very dead.
Yeah.
Hippo's like, but don't worry. I'm here to welcome you to the afterlife. Let me just pull out my note cards, which are papyrus rolls.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, so welcome to the Duat. And Steven's like, holy shit, the Duat, that's the Egyptian underworld. Which means that you are Taweret, the Egyptian goddess of women and children.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, yes, that's all very nice. You're very smart. Now shut the fuck up. I have more note cards. So because the Duat is like incomprehensible to human minds, because you're mortals and everything, you tend to render it as something that you can actually comprehend. Steven's like, well, why the fuck are we in a mental hospital instead of like, someplace nice? And Mark's like, well, that's because we're insane. Which, is blunt, but accurate. Mark's like, oh, geez, Dr. Harrow was right. This whole place is just an organizing principle. And Steven's like, wait a minute, Harrow's a doctor now? Like,
yeah.
when did that happen? Mark's like, well, you see, we're in a mental hospital. I'm going to walk through this door. There's going to be bingo going on. And holy shit, we're on a ship.
Yep.
So this ship,
a big Egyptian ship.
Yes, we're sailing through the sands of the underworld. It's all purple and orange, and it looks really cool. Yep. They are on their way to Aru, the field of reeds that is essentially ancient Egyptian heaven.
Yeah. Oh, did you notice that the hippopotamus mentions the ancestral plane?
Yes, she does mention that.
Which is that's the Black Panther afterlife. Yeah, that's where you go when you I don't know, when you get your Black Panther put down or whatever. It goes to the ancestral plane.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah.
So Taweret's like, oh, by the way, I just need to do something. And she like reaches into their chests and pulls out, their hearts, which are white for some reason.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. She goes over and places them on a scale and balances it against the feather of truth, which is all ancient Egyptian mythology, which Steven points out right away. So the scales are like tipping back and forth, and they determine whether the two of them get into heaven or are thrown overboard into hell.
Yeah.
Mark's like, well, shit, I can't do either of those because like we have to go back and save Layla and stop Harrow. So Steven, what if we just kill the hippo and steal the boat? And Steven's like, what the fuck? Taweret's like, guys, these scales are usually supposed to like stop at some point, and they're just kind of going back and forth. I think what's happening here is that your hearts aren't full, and maybe you should go.
She has no idea what the fuck. She's like, I've never seen this before. This does not make sense. I'm gonna go get a manager. Cards. Yeah.
Like, you guys just go back into the hospital and figure this shit out. I'm gonna be out here on a smoke break. So inside, Mark and Steven are talking about Layla, and Mark's like, well, if I know my wife, she's preparing a suicide mission to take down Harrow right now, which neither of them are in favor of. Mark's like, okay, let's just go back and kill the hippo. And Steven's like, she's a fucking god. What are you gonna?
Yeah.
They're walking down the hall, looking in the windows of these doors. There's a memory of Mark beating up the jackal in the museum bathroom.
Yeah.
And there's one of Steven turning back the night sky, which they're all like, oh, that's pretty cool.
I mean, because it looks real fucking cool.
Yeah. So Steven looks through another window and sees Mark standing on the side of a street drinking from a flask, and he's like, oh, that's kind of weird. Mark's like, yeah, let's just keep going. That's not important. There's a child screaming for help, and Steven runs down to investigate and finds this cafeteria full of dead bodies sitting in the chairs.
Mark's canteen.
Yeah. Mark's like, oh, hey, I remember that guy. Killed him in Chicago and him in Kuwait, and and Steven's like, you killed all these people?
Why do you kill so many people? Do you think that's why people don't like you very much? You're constantly killing them.
So the scales are still there, and they're still going back and forth. And seems like, wait a minute, Mark, in this room full of people you've killed, why is there a child standing over there? I don't like where this is going.
Yeah.
And the kid runs off, and Steven follows him. Mark chases them down. So Steven goes through this door that Mark is trying to stop him from going through, but Steven like closes the door, locks it behind him, and now he's in a backyard. And he's like, "Oh hey, that's my mom. She's grilling." And Mark and his little brother Roro are playing, and their dad is there. It's all a very comfy domestic scene. Mark convinces his brother to go play in the cave. Steven's like, "Wait a minute, I have a brother?
Yeah,
I don't remember that."
Yep. And
So
yeah. By the way, this is the point at which I was like,
yep.
Like this is maybe because, well, I'll get into that once we. I have something to say about this, but I'm gonna wait until we get a little bit in.
So there's some thunder rumbling as the kids are like walking through the woods, and Steven is behind. The kids start playing pretend with Mark being Dr. Stephen Grant from their favorite VHS movie. It starts to rain.
Familiar name.
Mm-hmm. And Roro's like, "Well, Mom said don't go in the cave when it's raining." Mark's like, "Come on, don't be a fucking pussy. Let's go. It'll be fine." On his way, following
the most
them into
older
the cave,
brother thing to say, by the way.
Yeah, Steven steps on a bird skeleton, which I think is a hint that Khonshu was involved even here.
Yeah, I think he might have been kind of watching him for a while.
Yeah,
because we know that he keeps his eye on people he thinks will be good agents for him or whatever.
Mm-hmm. While all this is happening in the hospital, Mark is like running down the hallways, trying doors, trying to find Steven. So the cave is rapidly flooding because it's raining really fucking hard.
Yeah, it turns out you actually shouldn't go into the cave when it's raining.
No. Steven's like going in there trying to yell at the kids to come back, and he's like having to squeeze through these incredibly narrow passages, and it's very tense and not very nice. Mark looks through one door, and his mother's just glaring back at him. He's like, okay, it's fine. It's just a memory.
I'll leave you there.
Mark actually has a little bit of an episode, like almost a panic attack, where he's just like, it's just a memory. It's just a memory. It can't hurt me. It's just a memory. And like, I get the sense that that's not the first time he's gone through this particular thing.
I mean, it's clear that he's repressing some really painful memories, and that it's that thing where if I don't think about it, it's not real. If I don't think about it, it's not real. If I don't think about it, it's not real. So,
yeah. He opens another door, and there's this room with a very somber gathering. It's a Jewish shiva, which I guess is a funeral gathering.
Yeah,
wake. His mother is just utterly inconsolable. She says, I want my Roro back. I want my son back. And little Mark comes down the stairs. His mother looks at him and says, "What the fuck are you doing here? Just you killed him. What the fuck?" She's obviously very, very
distraught. Yeah.
Yes. And Mark just runs back up the stairs. Steven is there, and he follows little Mark up the stairs, and old Mark is yelling, "No, don't go up there. Don't go up there, Steven." So he goes up the stairs, and now we find Mark's birthday. And it's just the saddest fucking birthday you can imagine.
Yeah.
He's sitting there alone with his dad. His mom is locked herself in a room and is not joining. And so Steven goes up the stairs and arrives at another birthday. And this time his mother is there, and she's very drunk.
Yeah.
And she basically just shit talks Mark. "You were always jealous of him. I should have known you were going to kill him someday, you worthless piece of shit." Mark runs upstairs to his room.
So here, this is where so I had a brother that died when I was a freshman in college, and let me tell you, like my dad didn't turn into a drunken fucking monster like this, but I can tell you firsthand that losing a kid really fucks parents up, and
it's really bad psychic trauma.
Yeah, it's also really terrible. Like obviously losing a sibling is unimaginably hard, but like I remember like. Like that. I was watching this episode, and I was like, well, because my dad's not a horrible person or anything, and please not what like he never like did anything really terrible, but he did really irrational things after my brother died because that's what you do when you're that crazy out of your mind with grief. So I don't know. The entire time I was watching this, I was like, oh, this is hitting kind of close to home. And then when you also factor in that Oscar Isaac gives one of the best performances I've seen in one of these like little Disney Plus shows, I just could not believe how good it was.
Yeah, for sure. So young Mark runs up the stairs to his room. Steven follows, but before he can open the door and get inside, old Mark like grabs him and pulls him into another memory. That they're out on the street now, and Steven's like, well, what the fuck? Why do you remember her like that? Our mother was nice. She never did that. Like, what are you hiding? And Mark is just not saying anything. He just kind of walks him down like there's restraining him. They see a now teenage Mark with a duffel bag walking away, and his father's like, no, please stay. I can't lose another son. Please, I'm begging you. Let's try to make this work. Mark tackles Steven into another memory, and now they're in the middle of the desert, and there's smoke and fire everywhere, and there's corpses everywhere, and Steve's like, what the fuck, Mark? Harrow told me you were a mercenary and you killed hostages and all that shit. And Mark's like, oh yeah, you just believe anything he tells you, huh?
Well, Conchu's a dick.
So here's the thing. When you get kicked out of the military because, you know, you wandered off base in a fugue state, you don't have very many career options. So, but my old CO called me up and said, hey, I got a job for you. We'll just go out in the desert and it'll be fine.
Which is not a thing anyone ever said ever.
No.
Let's go out in the desert. Everything will be fine. That's a fucking lie.
Midway through, the CO decided he wanted everyone dead, and Mark was like, I'm not going to kill all these people. So he tried to get him away, but he got caught up, and they all died, including Layla's dad.
Yeah.
So.
And he was mortally wounded too.
Yes.
So, and I guess that kind of kills the theory about his other alter killing the mercenaries, unless we're going to find out that his CO is another alter, because if I remember in the comics, he has a lot of different alters, and there's still that one alter that's unaccounted for from like 2 episodes ago or whatever.
Yes.
So like something still isn't adding up even after this episode. Something's not adding
for sure
up.
So in this memory, Steven and Mark follow like this trail of blood into the tomb that the archaeologists were excavating. That was the goal. And they see like memory Mark, who's shot and dying. He's got his gun out. He's about to kill himself when Conchu's like, well, that would be a real fucking waste. Because, you know, I happen to be in the market for someone just like you. And Mark's like, who the fuck are you?
Which, by the way, Conchu just kind of, it's just funny how like he's about to shoot himself and Conchu's like, hey, don't do that. He's like, hello? I don't know. Conchu is just kind of a goof to me.
He's also kind of a dick.
Yeah, no, he's terrible. No. He's fucking terrible. Don't get me like the wrong way.
Because the very next thing he says is that he can feel Mark's fractured mind.
Yeah, which apparently for him is like, thank God you've got a fractured mind. That's exactly what the fuck I'm looking for.
So how would you like me to save your life and in exchange you work for me? And Mark's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Meh.
Steven's like, holy shit, Conchu's been manipulating you since the very first time he talked to you. And Mark's like, well, yeah, but also he saved our life, so, you know.
Also, this is something Mark has told Steven. Like, he's like, this is what Conchu does.
I think there's a difference between just hearing about it and actually seeing it when Conchu specifically says, you're mentally unwell. That makes you good for my purposes.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference in rage also between Mark and the bad guy, Ethan Hawke, who was once an avatar for Conchu. So, like, he went through the same thing, obviously, and so now he's on a I'm gonna fuck the world tour, you know. So I think that I'm not sure that Mark is as rageful toward Conchu as Harrow is.
Yeah. So there's the set of scales of justice are there, and they're like almost balancing. They're still moving a little bit.
Yeah, they're getting close.
They also hear monkey sounds. They're like, hey, baboons, I think something's happening. So they exit out to the ship deck, and there's these purple fire things falling down from the sky. And Tauret's like, well, shit, that's not really good.
Tauret's losing her fucking mind. She's like, I don't know what's happening. What the fuck? What did you do?
She says there's a bunch of unjudged souls that are being sent to the underworld before their time. And Mark says, well, that's fucking Harrow and Amit. We need to get back there. And Tauret's like, well, even if I could send you back, you just end up in a body with a bunch of bullet holes. Steven's like, okay, I got it. can you send word to Layla and tell her to free Khonshu? Tara's like, I mean, I guess, but Khonshu's kind of a dick. Do you want to work with him? And Mark's like, well, we kind of have to, no matter what.
He's the best chance, you know.
Because otherwise, all this shit is going to keep happening. Tara's like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to point the ship to Osiris's gate, which is the only way back to the overworld. You guys finish working out your shit and balance the scales so that you can get off the boat safely. So they walk back inside. Steven's like, okay, Mark, I need you to trust me on this. We need to go to that bedroom and look at that memory, because I think that's the thing you're hiding from me. And Mark's like, we don't need to see it. We can just talk and it'll be great. Steven's like, no, seriously. Like, if we don't do this, Layla's going to die. Millions of other people are going to die. And it's going to be all your fault. Mark's like, no, that's not true. And he has this screaming breakdown. And all of a sudden we're in Harrow's office, where he's still screaming and doing the same things, and Harrow's like, okay, just calm down, it's gonna be fine. Mark's like, I'm not gonna calm down, you fucking injected me with drugs. And Harrow's like, oh, come on, we can't legally do that. Come on, what, do you think we do something illegal? That's
in your brain.
Yeah,
your crazy fucking brain.
And I'd be an expert in crazy brains now, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Harrow's like, okay, Mark, you've done great work today. You've been relieving very traumatic memories for several hours. I'm really, really proud of you. Here, have some water.
Have a donut. Good job.
I do have a question for you. Do you think that you created Steven to hide all the bad things that Mark did, or did Steven create you to punish the world for all the bad things your mother did? And Mark's like he looks down at his water, because he's maybe not certain about this. And Harrow's like, the only way that you can figure this out is if you talk to Steven and figure it out. So now up in the bedroom, in the memory, little Mark is knocking shit over, and he's like huddling in fear. And outside the room, his mother is banging on the door. Steven's like, wait a minute, this is my room, but I don't remember any of this. And as we see this, like, little Mark is terrified. Old Mark is just like very uncomfortable about all of this. And we see young Mark dissociate and become Steven.
For the first time, I think, is what we're supposed to do.
His eyes roll up and everything. Steven, old Steven, happens to look around and see the movie poster with Dr. Stephen Grant on it. He's like, holy shit, Mark created me. Like, their mother finally gets the door open, and Mark is like, okay, we gotta go. Grabs Steven gets him out of there. Steven's like, no, wait, I want to see what happens. And Mark's like, no, you're not supposed to see these things. Like, the whole point of you is that you don't deal with any of this shit.
Yeah.
And Steven punches Mark and like, fuck.
It's in the most Steven way, yeah.
Yeah. Steven's like, you made me up. Like, what the fuck? And Mark's like, look, you got to live a really nice life where you didn't have to deal with any of that shit.
You just nerded out about Egyptian shit and played with goldfish. Like, don't fucking bitch. Steven's
like, by the way, good thing we don't have to deal with any of that, because that bitch is dead. And Steven's like, what the fuck? She's not dead. I talk to her every day. There's no way she... Let me out. And all of a sudden, he's in Harrow's office. And Steven's in control of the body. And, like, he saws his water, and Harrow's like, he's like, ah! Splashes him in the face.
Yeah. And then he apologized. He's such a...
Yeah.
Steven's just such a fucking... I love him.
So this scene seemed a little weird to me. I want to know if you had the same... thing I did,
the phone call thing, you mean?
Not that, before it, because Harrow didn't seem super happy to see Steven. He seemed like concerned and almost cautious.
Yeah, because he definitely he makes a comment about how he never thought he'd see him again, and he, like, when he says, "Oh, I'm really," doesn't he say something like, "Oh, I'm really happy to see you," or like, "I'm really glad to see you again," or something? But like his face is just like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
It's every scene that Harrow is in, I'm just like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah. So Steven is very suspicious of Harrow because he remembers getting shot. Harrow's like, okay, so did you and Mark talk? And Steven's like, well, yeah, Mark fucking lied to me. And Harrow's like, well, what exactly did he lie to you about? Because there might be some element of truth here. He mentions that Steven was the one who checked them into the mental hospital after his mother died. And Steven's like, whoa, no, that's not true. My mother's alive. She's great. don't fucking talk about my mother. Hera's like, oh well, let me just call her and you can talk to her. And and Steven's like, actually, you better not. 'Cause she doesn't really like talking on the phone.
All of a sudden he's clearly like, I know that she's dead, but I need to make
Yeah.
up excuses why you can't call her. Yeah.
So Hera gets through, holds out the phone to Steven, and Steven just like steps forward, and like there's this brilliant bit of sound design where you can just barely hear the dial
tone. Yeah.
And Steven just breaks down and admits that his mother is dead, and it's all very sad.
Yeah, it is.
In memory, we get to see the finish of this memory with Mark drinking on the street, because his father is holding his mother's Shiva, and like Mark is just standing outside the house, and his father's like waving through the window like, come in. He's just like, no, I
nope,
can't do it.
I'm not drunk enough yet.
So Mark like walks down the street, but after a few steps just breaks down and starts sobbing. And
which this moment particularly, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot Oscar Isaac is a world-class fucking actor. Like it is really good performance. Yeah.
And Steven is there watching the memory, and Mark is just utterly disconsolate, and then suddenly he dissociates, and he's Steven, and he's just very lost and confused. He immediately calls his mother on his cell phone, which how?
Well, I think he's just making it up.
Probably, yeah. And he just starts walking away, and Mark is now in the memory of Steven. He's like, yeah, this was 2 months ago when our lives started bleeding into each other, and it's like I just couldn't deal with her. Like, I hated her, but I couldn't deal with her dying and the guilt of having killed my brother. And Steven's like, dude, you were just a kid when that happened. Like, it was not your fault. You couldn't have prevented it. And like they're having a nice bonding moment, but then the ship shakes, and they're like, holy shit, I think we just stopped. We better get up on deck. So Tauret has steered the ship back to the gates of Osiris, but they won't open because the scales still haven't balanced. And now it's too late. Like, the scales weren't balanced, so now you're dead. So like the souls of the Duat have to get them, and these sand zombies start climbing aboard the ship. And Mark's like, hey, I'd recognize you. I killed you in Chicago and you in Kuwait, and so on and so forth. Steven, hide, I'm gonna deal with this. And Mark like punches out a couple of them, but it doesn't go so great because he's really outnumbered, and he's like,
they're made of sand. Like, what are you gonna do?
Like, he gets grabbed, and he's being forced over the rail, and Steven's like, wait a minute, I can help. And he grabs the boat rudder and jams it over to the side, and like they all get tipped over in the middle. And like Mark gets knocked down and almost tossed overboard again. So Steven is like, wait a minute, if Mark can beat the crap out of people, I'm Mark too. I can beat the crap out of people. And he like tackles one of the sand zombies, like picks up the baseball bat and starts beating the crap out of all of them. It's really quite impressive.
Yeah.
And Mark is just like leaning there against the boat railing, like, holy shit, he
good
can
job.
actually do this.
Yeah. You're not a nerd anymore.
It doesn't work so well because Mark eventually gets seized and almost pulled overboard, and Steven like does this running diving tackle to knock the zombie off, but he falls off the ship as well, which is really bad. And
also opposite of what we were primed to believe, because we really thought that that Mark was going to be the one that fell over and got grabbed by sand zombies or whatever.
So Steven is like, they have this very sad goodbye where Mark is like, stop the ship, and they're screaming, and
the hippo's like, I don't know how.
Steven turns into a sand zombie, but at that point the scales balance, and all of a sudden Mark is in the field of reeds. There's this nice Spanish pop music, and that's it, episode over.
Which, by the way, the whole I was reminded of the whole scale thing when Harrow tried to like read his I don't know, karma or whatever the fuck he does. How like his scale tattoo wouldn't like say yes or no, like it was just kind of confused and shit. So and I guess this is, I don't know, because he got rid of one of his altars, he's more healthy, or
maybe
I'm not really sure. It's not permanent, I don't think. I think that what ends up happening is Mark gets back to the real world somehow, and he gets to Khonshu, and he's like, you need to go save Steven. Like you need
Maybe.
to take your fucking beaked ass and you need to go down to the Egyptian underworld and you need to save Steven because honestly, I have a goldfish and I have no idea how the fuck to take care of it. So please go get him.
I have one question for you.
Okay.
There's a couple sequences in here, like the first sequence in Harrow's office where Mark's nose is messed up,
Mhm.
and then in
The
the
next
hallway
one where it's not, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
and then
yes.
in the hallway where they're arguing about whether or not to go into their room when they were kids, it sounds to me like maybe Mark's accent is very slightly different.
There are so many weird things.
Yeah, so
Because
I'm wondering
like
if
so there are two different Harrow scenes that are sequential. Like there's one where he has the bandage on his nose, and then the next one where he doesn't. And that I don't think is a continuity error. Like I think that'd be a pretty easy thing to not make a mistake on. So I wouldn't be surprised if we find out somehow that like in the last couple of episodes there were actually 3 alters.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe maybe the one in the scene where his nose is messed up, that's the third guy who's in the coffin that they didn't open up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy, but we got to go. We're gonna start Battlefront here in just a couple of minutes. So make sure you like the page and you're signed up for notifications. That way, you know when we're gonna go live here. We're gonna play some Battlefront, get some Star Wars, get our Star Wars on. It'll be a lot of fun. So thank you everyone who's